This is a true murder story that happened around the early 1900s in the Woods Memorial Circle, Mapleville, Rhode Island. This story is a more true and detailed story of the one before that my great-grandmother told me about. Catherine was a mill owner's daughter. She was a very pretty tall blonde. She was engaged to a local farmer, Robert. Catherine, though, had one problem. A man, who some say had mental issues, was stalking Catherine. His name was David. David would send Catherine letters of how much he loved her, and how they could have babies together. These letters disturbed Catherine. He would watch her through the window and follow her wherever she went. One day, Catherine confronted him and told him never to talk to her again. David thought this was like a game, so he proceeded to send disturbing letters and watch her at all times. As a few days went by, he gave up. With this, he had a plan. If he couldn't love her, no one else could. So one day, while Catherine was going to the woods to get water for her family, David followed. First, he stopped at Catherine's fiance's farm. Robert was working on the farm as usual, and David came in from behind and stabbed him in the back with a pitchfork. Then he went off to find Catherine. Catherine was sitting next to a pond under a hemlock tree. David pulled out his knife and stabbed her through the neck. She screamed in pain as David ripped open her body. As she died, David messed with her dying body. Afterwards, he took her organs out, cut off her breasts, and nailed her heart to a tree, covered in blood. David went home and took a nap. He was supposedly awoken by the sound of dripping. He looked around his room, and it was covered in blood. In the middle of the room, Catherine stood there cursing at him. David had gone insane. He wrote his last letter to the police, telling them what he did, where her body was, and all that happened. He drowned himself the next day in a river, his body sprawled out on a rock, broken. Catherine and Robert were buried in a now abandoned cemetery, and David's body was thrown into a pit. During a biopsy, they found a heart in David's stomach. Some people think he swallowed her heart, while others think Catherine put it there. Still, rumors persist that late at night in the cemetery, you could see the couple holding hands as if nothing ever happened. I believe I had a true experience with a shadow person. This is my story. It was maybe 11-ish at night. My boyfriend and myself were watching a movie. The lights were dim in the house. The house is more than 100 years old. From where I was seated, I could see the dining area, which was dark, and the kitchen doorway, which had a dimmed overhead light on, and the light was spilling into the dining room. I noticed a distinct shadow movement in the light from the kitchen, like someone or something walked past the light. I turned my head fully towards the doorway now, and saw a solid black elongated ovalish shape towards the top of the doorway, and it quickly slipped into the kitchen. My immediate reaction was not of fear, but sort of like, okay, what the heck was that? I wasn't alarmed. I continued watching the movie thinking of explanations for what I just saw. Now let me tell you, there are 3 dogs in the home as well as the 2 of us. My boyfriend's 2 dogs were asleep on the floor by our feet, and my dog was by my side on the couch. He's small. He was acting a bit odd, nervous now. Perhaps he sensed it in me. 30 minutes later, He got down and headed towards the kitchen. He had just got his head in the door and promptly stopped. I couldn't see his head and shoulders, just his back end. I saw his neck raise like he was looking up, and then it happened. It took my breath and gave me chills. He started wagging his tail, slow at first, like he was unsure, and then the momentum slowly gained. He never got to a full-on happy to see you wag. Then he abruptly stopped and came back to my side. He would not enter the kitchen. And in case you think maybe he was looking out a window, no, the window was too high up to see anything. My name is Guy, and I would like to share my experience at Lambertville High School. I've been there numerous times. I live about 25 minutes away in Pennsylvania. My friends and I are ghost hunters, and Lambertville is a favorite spot of ours. The first time I visited the school was about 2 years ago, in 2005 and 2006, and I've been curious about it ever since then. I've had many comments about history of this amazing site. I've been through some of the school, not all of it though, because the building is in poor shape. The first time we went, we didn't encounter anything out of the ordinary. Back then, we had no equipment except our eyes and ears and flashlights. We really didn't venture inside until the second trip, but that was during the day and also uneventful. The third trip back to the school was a shocker that still gives me chills to this day. We went on a summer night, around midnight, or maybe a little later than that, and not a smart thing to do, but we didn't know any better. We parked the car out in front of the steps leading up to the school. We were to go in shifts up and into the school. 2 go and 2 stay in the car to watch for cops. We were there for 5 minutes before 2 of my friends came sprinting to the car screaming, "Drive! Drive!" Me and my friend, who stayed in the car, were wondering what was literally scaring them to insanity. What they told us was pretty crazy at first. They said that while they were walking up the steps to the school, they heard the sounds of little children, little girls, giggling and laughing. At first I didn't believe it and wanted to go back to experience this for myself. I'm the kind of person that has to see to believe, but it's the hope of that proof that draws me back to this school. Anyway, that incident was about 2 years ago, and between my friends, it has been just a story with no proof. No proof until now. Last week, May 2008, me and my friends met up again, thanks to school being finished, and decided to go back. We went that night around 10 to 10:30 and stayed there for a good hour and ventured inside. Though we heard no laughing, I'm still a believer. I believe my friend's story and everyone else's stories of little children laughing because I caught it on tape. I recently purchased some equipment to help capture paranormal activity, and the most valuable tool I had that night was my recorder. It's amazingly lucky that I caught anything at all, because I only recorded audio for about 7 minutes of our hour-long investigation, and all but about a minute of the audio has voices on it that were not ours. I also caught the voice of maybe a teacher or student saying, "Does he seem okay?" in a 2-minute-long conversation with what I believe is a female and a male that answers a question that I ask. I've showed this tape to my family and friends, and they all hear talking as well, and the laughter seems to freak everyone out. I wanted to make sure that what I was hearing was, well, what I was hearing. When I heard the laughing on the tape, I thought, my God, they weren't joking or trying to scare us. They really did hear something that night, something that I would like to share with your website, if that is alright with you. I just want to know that there's something other than this life. And that is what draws me to the paranormal. Thank you for your time, and thank you for reading this. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to ask. I'd love to share these clips with you guys and your viewers. This is in reference to your listing for the Hearthstone Inn, Colorado Springs, Colorado. This place has much more than a little girl. As a housekeeper there in 1999, I was able to experience almost all of the hauntings. In the south building, 3rd floor, the little girl would appear regularly, as well as the man in brown in the main bedroom, also in the southwest corner of the floor. He was harmless and would usually disappear as soon as spotted. On the 3rd floor, I've never felt alone, would often hear the little girl and running and laughing. 2 of the 4 bedrooms on the 1st floor share a bedroom. I learned to prop the door open while cleaning, or I would be locked in. The first time I was locked in, I rattled the door and was screaming for the other housekeeper. I was nearly hysterical when she let me out after about 5 minutes. Also in the south building, 1st floor, there was a bedroom at the end of the hall that used to be under the stairway. The back stairway of this building, when it was a hotel, led outside. Many of our guests reported having the dreams of the woman in this room. I would feel her, but never see her. I would have trouble with the lights and an unwelcoming presence. On one occasion, the owner, David Oxhandler, spent the night in the room on having a very vivid dream of this woman and dismissing it as a dream. He was too shaken to go back to sleep. When he stepped outside to have a cigarette, he turned around, feeling he was not alone, and actually saw her, dressed as just in the dream, floating where the stairs would have been. Rumors she was the victim of a lover's quarrel and was shot on the back stairs. The last one I knew of was in the north building, 2nd floor. One room next to the stairs facing east was never pleasant to be in. The light was very temperamental, flickering and choosing when to be on or off. I would feel a presence on the floor, but really tried to ignore it until one day I was standing near the stairs with several heavy bundles of laundry to take downstairs, when I felt a pressure on the right side small of my back. Just a little shove, and I nearly went headfirst down the stairs, and not of my own volition. Last I hear, the Oxlanders were doing haunted history tours of their hotel. Shortly after, it has been sold to another local organization. Very much worth adding some info to your site, and thanks for the space. My wife and I had several experiences in our apartment over the last 3 years we have lived here. It began with hearing noises and creaks in the building early on, and slowly evolved to seeing shadows in the middle of the night in our bedroom. We both have had experiences where we thought to have seen a little boy in blue pajamas looking at things in our bedroom. 3 major events have occurred, which I'll describe in detail. Event 1. Summer of 2006. My brother was staying over because he is a minor, and our mother was going out of town. We had woken up late to eat breakfast and were playing a game of cards. As we are brothers and there is a significant age gap, we sometimes argue. I was being a little bit of a jerk, picking on a card selection he had made, when our kitchen trash can started to rock back and forth. We were the only people present in the apartment, and we were about 10 yards from the trash can. I investigated the trash can further to find that it was nearly empty and there was nothing that could have moved, so we went to the park. Event 2. Winter of 2007. My wife and I were growing fascinated with the television show Ghost Hunters. We had spent an entire day watching episodes from the 2nd season DVD. Being cocky and joking with my wife over her growing discomfort with the mood the show was setting, I began joking about talking on the ghost of the apartment, saying such things as, "If anyone is here, come here and get me," or "You can't touch me, you're just a ghost, I don't believe in you." Later that night, at 4 a.m., I woke up quite distressed and felt that the apartment was shaking from a significant earthquake. I was sure that it was the big one and rushed to jump out of bed and pull my wife to safety in a doorway. She was in a state of shock as I lifted her out of bed and was scared of an earthquake also. When we finally got to the doorway and calmed down, I explained to her that I thought there was an earthquake but couldn't feel it anymore. She couldn't either. I began to grow very nauseous and leaned on her for support. I told her I wasn't feeling right and I blacked out. As I was blacked out, I heard sounds of people talking very quickly. At first I thought it was my wife, and I tried to tell her to slow down. I felt the sensation of running very quickly while I was hearing the rapid dialogue. I was growing angry when suddenly I awoke lying on the floor with my wife over me. She told me she thought I was having a seizure or something because all of my muscles had lightened, and I was screaming and moaning in a sense of fear. She said that I had also grown pale. All throughout that night, I felt the bed continue to shake. Event 3. Soon after Event 2. I was angered by an experience I had felt earlier in Event 2, where I had awoken to what I thought to be an earthquake and experienced what I thought to be a form of being possessed. I researched how to hold a seance to converse with spirits present within the room and invited friends over to help with the conversation. I didn't describe the experience I had felt earlier so that it would not affect my friends' experiences that night. In the middle of the seance, one of my friends began to grow woozy and sway forward when he suddenly stopped it. He said that he couldn't go on and felt like someone was talking quickly to him, and he had felt the sensation of running, identical to my experience earlier. I shared with him my experience, and we decided not to continue. Also, this night, my friend's car got a flat tire while parked in my apartment, and only needed to be refilled with air as there was no puncture to cause the flat, as if someone deflated it. Also, another friend was called by his girlfriend within minutes of us ending the seance because she felt something had happened and was worried. He had only told her he was going to see me and not anything about what we were doing that night. The friend with the flat also received a phone call from his aunt about an hour after, whom he speaks with rarely, because she had similar concerns as my friend's girlfriend. How's that for women's intuition? Ever since that last event, nothing else has occurred. This is a personal experience that to this day has left me shaken. There is something wrong with this apartment complex. My experience centered on the apartment we were in, but from other residents, I heard other tales that made me really not want to live there, and as soon as I could get out, my husband and I certainly did. Montreal Apartments located in South Lyon. There is a huge tree right directly in front of it. Apparitions have been seen in the little hallway between bathroom and bedroom. The panel in the hallway leading up to the crawl space had moved on its own. Personal experience was actually in the bathtub and the only one home when it happened. I'm all of 5 foot and that ceiling is a good 8 feet. There was no way for me to get up there. We figured that the only way to move that panel was to be up in the crawl space. Each crawl space is self-contained. EVPs have gotten into the apartment of a young woman with an accent saying, "Can't stay too long," and sleep. Both still have. If you leave the apartment door open while taking a shower, you get this feeling that you are being watched. Then look out. You see the retreating figure of what looks to be a young woman. I'd had this happen and thought I'd left my apartment door open, and it was a neighbor, and upon investigation, found my door deadbolt was locked. Numerous pictures of orbs and odd shadows have been captured in this apartment. all still have. Late at night, you can also hear someone walking past the apartment, and when you go to look, there is no one on the walkway. And considering where the apartment is, there's no way for someone to get down it quick enough without hearing the sounds of running feet. Have had an experience of having the front door hit several times while I was to peephole, and no one was there. Stories were also told to me of the laundry room in the same building is also a place of odd occurrences. Feelings of being watched and hearing a young woman's voice. Have felt the being watched part, but considering that the old furnace system was right there in the laundry room, I dismissed it. A lot of my family and husband's family refused to spend the night there just because the place gave them the creeps, and this was prior to some of these events happening. I've tried to find out if there have been any deaths or murders or anything on that ground, and I came up with nothing. All I know is that the place was just, there was something wrong with it, and I wish I had never moved into it. The EVPs were caught when that building had few residents. I still have them, just have others listen to them from time to time to prove I wasn't crazy with what I heard. The pictures are numerous, and some still make the hair on my arms stand up because of the experiences with them. Hey Phantom, so first of all, pull your trousers up and remember to like that video, because if you don't, bad things will happen in this universe, and you don't want that to happen. Anyway guys, just ignore what I just said. I'm being silly as usual, and I really appreciate your viewership. We just hit 26,000, which I feel like we just hit 25 not too long ago, so I'm really thankful for your support. Again, do your best to actually share this video all around wherever you can, because it really helps the channel grow, as you guys are fully aware of, and I just love your support just in general. Remember to comment on this video. It doesn't matter what it is, what stories you like the most, because there are a lot of good stories in this collection in particular. I feel like this is a pretty eventful video, so with that, I'm just gonna go and exit stage left or right. I guess it really depends on which stage ignore me. Guys, I gotta go. Love you, and I'll see you in the next video.